This is The Big Story presented by herbchambers.com.
I'm Scott Helman, political editor of the Boston Globe. Today we learned that Massachusetts will lose a congressional seat. That means we go from 10 to 9. This was widely expected as the Census Bureau came out with its latest population figures for all 50 states in the nation today. What this means, it means a further erosion of the state's political influence. It means that we have less say in presidential races because the Electoral College counts are keyed to congressional seats. It means we'll get a lesser share of federal funding going forward because many funding formulas in Washington are dependent on population and on congressional apportionment. So this was widely expected, and the most interesting thing now that we've gone from 10 seats to 9 is what happens to our congressional delegation. This means that for 2012, we are no longer going to have 10 members of Congress. We're going to have 9 seats to run for, and that means that somebody has to go. Now, there's several ways that could happen. Somebody could retire, a couple of them could retire, a few are interested or may be interested in running for Scott Brown's Senate seat in 2012. He's up for re-election that year as well. There are some nice ways that this could happen if somebody decides to retire or run for another office. The not nice way for it to happen is that everybody wants to run for their seat again and there's only room for 9. So this is going to set up a very interesting political dynamic going forward as the state legislature begins the difficult, arduous, and politically charged task of redrawing the state's congressional districts. That will happen over the course of 2011, again in time for the 2012 elections. So Massachusetts is one of a number of states grouped in the Midwest and in the Northeast to lose seats this cycle. This is part of the continuing population shift. And what that means is that a lot of these states that are getting additional seats are typically Republican seats. They're more conservative states. And so that means in presidential elections, those states are going to have more power as opposed to some of the seats in the Northeast, which of course have been historically Democratic. So this does have political consequences going forward, as it always does. And it's a fascinating shift if you look over time, because 100 years ago, Massachusetts had 16 seats. Now we're just about at half of that. And that gives you a sense of how important the state used to be and politically and how important the state is now. Of course, people in Massachusetts like to think that we have outsized political influence in Washington, and that may still be the case in some intangible way, but by the numbers, we are certainly losing power. There's no question about it.